Welcome to Digging Deeper Moments, a ministry of Eagles Nest Church, where we hope a few minutes from our studies leads to a better Bible study for you. And this week we are with our student ministries director, Andrew Flack, and I thoroughly enjoyed when he spoke on this particular series that we're in right now, Catching Fire. This is our Addendum series where we're spending some time in the Digging Deeper Moments. I don't want to say fleshing out. We want to just further explore what you shared on a Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. And this past Sunday, you shared from Acts 10 and 11. Mm-hmm. Do you mind just recapping, reminding us what that story is?
Yeah, so it covers Peter and Cornelius, and it is really the story of how a Jew who had for generations been told, don't fraternize with the outside cultures, otherwise you'll become Canaanized or you'll become like them, you'll become pagan. How he handles when God decides to give himself, the Holy Spirit, to the Gentiles. And so you kind of have this reluctant Peter who's following every step of the way of the Spirit, just pushing him through. You've got this excited Roman Gentile who's just devout to God and is following every step of the way and through.
This is Cornelius, the centurion.
Right. And then through the end of the story, essentially a second Pentecost happens.
Yes, I like that. I like that term.
And the Gentiles are figuring out, like, okay, now we have this Holy Spirit, but it doesn't really talk too much about the Gentiles' response outside of they were glorifying God. They were truly worshiping God together. It really focuses on the Jewish Christians' response. Peter and the people with him who witnessed it were dumbfounded. They had nothing else to say. They believed because they had no other option. But every other person who wasn't there was critical, was not convinced, and still holding on to those old cultural ways. And so in general, the story and the message is kind of helping us to identify, like, what are the human cultural rules that we have that prevent us from sharing God with people? Because Peter had plenty. But yet he had this epic statement at the end of, like, who could I be to stand in God's way? God clearly was doing this, and therefore, who am I to judge? Who am I to get in the way of that? So,
Holy Spirit to the Gentiles without all of the regulations of Judaism.
Right. Gentiles have had the way technically available. Like, Jesus' blood had paid for all sin at this point. Resurrection had beat death. The Spirit was entering into his people. So the purification of, even the Jewish purification was already kind of available. They just didn't know about it yet. And so this is the way that they found out about all of the implications of Jesus' life and death, because at this point, they're still putting two and two together.
So the Jews could have gone about it the same way as Gentiles, technically.
Yeah, right.
They didn't necessarily need all of the Jewish regulation anymore.
Right.
Would it be fair to say that they're trying to choose between, is this cultural and not necessary, or is this, no, it's so necessary because in the Old Testament, God said.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the tension that continued and brought back up in Acts 15. And like, it was a constant conversation.
Remind us what Acts 15 is.
So it's the Jerusalem Council that's held, including Paul and Barnabas, who have more of a dip into the Greco-Roman world than some of the other brothers. They also, were Jewish, but
to weigh in the Gentile point of view,
right?
But they needed to send their best Jews to do it,
right? Yeah, right. Pretty much. Yeah. Paul was also a Roman citizen, and so he knew that world deeper and he knew it better. And they're also having to just draw so many lines between, like, okay, well, if Gentiles are being entered into the family, well, then what of the things we've always been taught that we have to do have to stay in, and what don't have to be done? Circumcision being one of the conversations, what they ate being another part of the conversation. So they're really trying to reconcile, okay, maybe we're entertaining this idea, but we can't just abandon the things that we've known our whole life. How do we go about this wisely?
How do we make this transition, you would say?
Yeah.
Exactly, to where it's all inclusive. Mm-hmm. Because he said in the Great Commission, starts in Jerusalem, and then to Samaria, Judea, Samaria,
Right.
to the outermost parts of the earth,
Yeah.
being all those Gentiles.
Yeah. Right.
Because Samaritans were half Jew.
Right.
So,
Right.
even though they saw them just as bad as the Gentiles, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not exclusive to the Jews now. It's inclusive to anyone and everyone.
And the ironic thing is, in a way, that's always been the case. It was
Yes.
less about like they're the family of God. Like that was certainly part of it, but it was because they were the ones who were doing these things.
I remember in the Old Testament, he said, you will be a royal priesthood
Right.
as a people to
Yeah.
the nations.
Yeah. Right.
And not that is, and you're the in all and be all.
Right. And priesthood has always held a tone of servant and
Yes.
and loving others and serving others and laying down life for others. But again, like
And to lead and guide the others.
right. And so they were supposed to be showing the nations what this can be like, and they did to some, but like we talk about, they get pious and they get, well, this is my God, this is, we're an us and they're them, and they just kind of become human, and maybe they always were, but
I wonder if we can see if any correlation to what we experience in our world today,
yeah,
to that very much us, they, them.
yeah. I mean, everywhere you look, I think every human institution is going to have that same attitude. On any scale, on any topic, it's just what we do. It's very primitive. It's very, hunter-gatherer instinct. It's like to protect and to, and to be guarded against others.
Should we excuse it then?
It counters the divine command. It counters everything that God is and commands us to be. If we're supposed to be one body and one spirit and one Lord and one baptism and all of these unity terms, of course it's riskier with fallen humanity, but why should we not strive for that if it's what God is and it's what God's calling us to be? That's
in the holiness, the set apartness of God himself that he's wanting to relate through us.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Right.
As image of God. Mm-hmm. So how do you view Peter now after you've done all this study and gotten a little bit deeper on Peter himself and what he went through, his thought process, this journey from the fisherman Jesus called to the leader, to see the Spirit fall on the Gentiles, to be a witness to it, to the others.
Like I was just thinking about this post, the message is like a huge claim that I clearly put throughout reading Acts and explaining it the way that I got to, was that everything about it was uncomfortable for Peter. Everything about it went against his culture. It went against what he felt comfortable doing. It went against his own fears. He constantly was being uncomfortable. And I think that that's confirmed like as time passes on too, because when you're reading the epistles and you're reading Galatians 2, when Paul kind of rebukes Peter and says, hey, like
when he visited the church at Antioch,
right? Like, hey, you were the first to eat with the Gentiles, but now you're abandoning it because these other certain men from James are entering in and you want to appease them and you're fearful of the circumcision party. So now you're basically redacting all of the work you already got done in Acts 10 and 11.
I always, if you don't mind me saying, I always feel like he's thinking he's doing a good thing, because he's going to be, like Paul said, I'm going to be a Greek to the Greek and Jew to the Jews.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to meet them where they're at. Mm-hmm. And maybe he thought he was doing that initially.
Yeah.
Because I'm meeting with the Gentiles. I don't have a problem meeting with the Gentiles, thanks to Acts 10 and 11.
Yeah.
But then, certain men from James are coming from Jerusalem, the Jewish Christians that were possibly former Pharisees.
Yeah.
Lots of Judaism.
Yeah.
That they're still trying to unwind in their own lives. Maybe I just need to meet them halfway and just separate myself from the Gentiles while they're visiting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's come down to like the people pleasing versus God pleasing.
Which Paul is pointing out.
Right.
At this point, what's more important, dude?
Right. And if you're following people, you're going to go to the us versus them mentality. And if you're following God, you won't. You'll see everybody as a fellow creation and image of God. And so I think that it's an interesting dynamic because like you said, from the beginning of Peter's life, he's a fisherman. Okay, this rabbi, Jewish rabbi, gives him a once in a lifetime opportunity to not be a fisherman and to like further his education, which would not have been given to somebody like him.
Right. He was too old at that point, right?
Right. And then throughout the rest of the Gospels, he's commonly referred to as, or even in Acts, like as an uneducated Galilean. And so it's funny because like you almost get a sense of part of him has always wanted to be that educated Jew,
Right.
You know what I mean? To have that higher standard. So it's like when he's with the big guys and then he has this pressure of people pleasing and it leads to,
That might be a part of his personality there.
you know, and following into like, okay, what do they want me to be rather than what does God want me to be? I don't throw stones. I think that that's an interesting piece of Peter's character is that's prevalent both before, during, and after this second Pentecost moment.
Still being stretched that way, as you said, by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if the Spirit isn't someone we're constantly going to consistently, then we will have ups and downs in our effectiveness as evangelists. And so I think for Peter, he's not totally exempt from being the problem as well.
Maybe that makes him more relatable.
Yeah, for sure.
If you find these moments helpful, please like and subscribe.